Hello everybody, this is Mr. US History and welcome back to a brand new video. As you know, I haven't uploaded a video in a week, but this week I'm on break, so I'm probably going to stick to a upload schedule of a video every 2 days, or possibly even a video every day if I can. So anyway, in this video, we will be ranking the 10 greatest senators in American history, in my opinion, of course. And as you know, the Senate has 100 senators. Some of these senators have been great, some of them have been awful, and others have been forgettable. And in this video, I won't be ranking any current U.S. senators or any senators who have recently left office. And number 10 on my list is Senator Carl Hayden from the great state of Arizona. Carl Hayden, basically the senator from Arizona, for 42 years, from 1927 to 1969, being one of the longest-serving senators in American history. He was a chairman of both the Senate Rules Committee as well as the Senate Appropriations Committee. Carl Hayden was a consistent supporter of legislation which dealt with conservation, as well as legislation which built dams and also mining, and basically was a key supporter in any program meant to help western states, such as the state of Arizona. He basically made a formula regarding how funds would be distributed for the federal highway system and was a key role in making its development. John F. Kennedy described Hayden by saying that every federal program which has contributed to the development of the West, irrigation, power, reclamation, and they all bear his mark, and the great federal highway program which binds this country together, which permits the state to be competitive east, west, north, and south. This, in large measure, is his creation. Hayden was also known as the silent senator, who rarely spoke on the Senate floor, still had a lot of influence. Number 9 is Sam Houston. Sam Houston was the senator from Texas and previously served as governor or president of Texas when Texas was its own independent country. Sam Houston was an ardent supporter of the Union and would basically do anything to make sure that the Union stayed together when it was falling apart. Houston was not like other Southern senators such as John C. Calhoun, who basically wanted to break apart the Union through nullification or even secession, and Sam Houston was one of the only senators from the South who voted for a bill which made the state of Oregon enter the Union as a free state. He also opposed the Kansas-Nebraska Act, being the only Southern senator to do so. Not to mention that when he served as the governor of Texas, when the Texas legislature sought to secede, Sam Houston still remained loyal to the Union. Number 8 is Russell B. Long. Russell Long basically did everything in his power to make sure that the common people, or basically the poor also, were respected and were given equal rights, and he also was the chairman of the Senate Finance Committee, and as chairman, he played a key role in Medicare establishment, and also, despite being an ardent progressive, he also helped in efforts to cut taxes, particularly on poor people. Despite being from the South, and for most of his career supporting segregation, Russell Long was much more moderate on the topic than other Southern senators, and later grew to support civil rights, including voting for a bill to make MLK Day a national holiday, and also supported extending the Voting Rights Act of 1965. Number 7, we have John Sherman, the senator from Ohio. Sherman was known for being an expert when it came to financial matters in the Senate, and John Sherman basically, he helped fund the national government and made sure that the national government would not run out of money after the Civil War. Sherman was also a strong supporter of the gold standard as well as civil service reform during the Hayes administration. Sherman was also a stalwart supporter of civil rights legislation and ensuring that African Americans had equal rights during Reconstruction. Perhaps Sherman's greatest accomplishment as senator was the Sherman Antitrust Act, which basically helped break up monopolies, which had a huge influence over American politics at the time. Number 6 is Daniel Webster, also known as Black Dan. Daniel Webster was a member of the Great Triumvirate, who basically ruled the Senate during the period of the 1850s and 1840s. This included him, Henry Clay of Kentucky, and John C. Calhoun of South Carolina. And Dan Webster was an ardent nationalist, and he believed that the Union should be preserved in all cases. He also was an expert when it came to the Constitution, probably being one of the senators who knew the most about the Constitution, and despite being a strong opponent of slavery, Webster was able to compromise and was known as one of the best orators on the Senate floor, and even worked with John C. Calhoun. Number 6, we have Robert La Follette. La Follette was known in Congress for being an opponent of corporatism and supporting common people over the corporations. La Follette was an opponent of the trusts and the monopolies, and was known for being a progressive who supported efforts to detail their powers. Number 4, we have Hubert Humphrey. Humphrey in the Senate was known as a strong supporter of civil rights, and arguably brought the issue to the nation's forefront during the 1950s and 60s. He also came up with the idea of Peace Corps 3 years before it was established, as well as Medicare and Medicaid. He also was a protege of Lyndon Johnson throughout in the Senate, and played a key role in getting the 1964 Civil Rights Act passed when he was vice president. And speaking of Lyndon Johnson, here he is at number 3 on the list. Lyndon Johnson started in the Senate as a protege of segregationist Richard Russell. However, later on when he served in the Senate, he became one of its most powerful members when he served as Senate Majority Leader. Johnson was known for using this little technique he called known as the Johnson treatment, where he would use his height and physical appearance to his advantage when it came to convincing or even threatening fellow colleagues in the Senate to do as he wanted. Lyndon Johnson was able to work with all members of the Senate, whether they were a progressive liberal, a conservative Republican, or a Southern segregationist. Lyndon Johnson played a key role in getting the 1957 Civil Rights Act passed during his time as Senate Majority Leader, and also was instrumental in getting NASA established. Number 2, we have Henry Clay. Henry Clay was known in the Senate for being a compromiser, or someone who could compromise, basically, and was basically the glue that kept the Union together during this difficult time. He was a member of the Great Triumvirate, and perhaps one of his biggest accomplishments was finding a solution to the nullification crisis, and basically was able to find common ground between Jackson and Calhoun through the Tariff of 1833, which basically reduced duties on the previous tariff of 1828, despite the fact that Clay had supported that tariff. Henry Clay was also a supporter of many Whig proposals, such as the National Bank, as well as infrastructure and internal improvements. He was also an opponent of the Mexican-American War, viewing it as unjust and a tactic and basically bullying by the United States towards Mexico, which was a weaker country. Henry Clay is best known for the Compromise of 1850, in which he was able to find an agreement between the pro-slavery Southerners and anti-slavery Northerners, and was able to keep the Union together. And number 1 on the list, the best senator of all time, in my opinion, is Charles Sumner. Charles Sumner was one of the leaders of the Radical Republicans in the Senate. He was a strong opponent of slavery, and was one of the Radical Republicans who basically supported nothing short of the complete and total abolition of slavery. Charles Sumner was an opponent of the Kansas-Nebraska Act of 1854, and in a speech where he basically denounced the act, he took it a bit too far, and also went out against the characters of the people who had made the law and voted for it, and this caused him to be beaten almost nearly to death by the representative from South Carolina, Preston Brooks. During Reconstruction, Charles Sumner was a strong supporter of civil rights and voting rights for African Americans, and I'd say he was one of the few members of the Senate or in Congress at the time who harbored no racial prejudice whatsoever. And despite being a radical Republican, Charles Sumner was not one of those Republicans who had supported hanging or excessive punitive damages towards the South after the Civil War, and he was noted for being one of the more reconciliatory Republicans. Charles Sumner was also a strong supporter of civil service, which was another stance which was strange for a radical Republican. But anyway, thank you guys for watching this video. Make sure you like this video and subscribe to the channel. Like this video down below, and thank you for watching.